In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the circumcenter and the incenter of a triangle. And those are points, and they're called points of concurrency, meaning three lines intersect at this common point. And these are created by either the perpendicular bisectors or angle bisectors in a triangle. So to start out with, the circumcenter is the perpendicular bisectors intersect. And if you remember from our Christmas ornaments, this is what we created to then circumscribe the circle around the triangle and make our ornaments. The key to the circumcenter is it's always equidistant from the vertices of the triangle. So what we're going to do is help you figure out what parts are what when you have a diagram like this. So if we want to list the perpendicular bisectors, we need to look for the midpoint. So D is a midpoint, E is a midpoint, F is a midpoint. We can tell that by the tick marks. So these perpendicular bisectors all are in yellow. We can tell because the right angles are there. So those are the perpendicular bisectors. So PD, PE, and PF. The circumcenter is point P. So the circumcenter, P, right here, is equidistant from the vertices. So the vertices are the corners of your triangle. So we'll highlight those in different colors. So the vertices, the congruent segments, come from the circumcenter and they go to each vertex. So BP is congruent to CP, and that is congruent to AP. So you can take any of those two segments and set up an equation to solve if you need to, or if you know the length of one segment, then you know the other two. So let's try a couple problems as an example. So Z is the circumcenter of triangle TUV. So that means W is a midpoint, Y is a midpoint, X is a midpoint. So we know TW and WV would be congruent, TX and XU would be congruent, and VY and YU would be congruent. We also know that TZ, VZ, and ZU, I'm going to highlight all those in the same color because those are all going to be congruent. So if VZ is 21, then ZU is 21, TZ is 21. I'm just going to write that in there right now. If this side VU is 34, I know that VY is 17 and UY is 17. If XU is 19, TX is 19. So I'm going to fill in as much as I can before I even look at what their problem is asking me to solve. So now, okay, TU. From T to U, 19 plus 19, 38. VY, we already have marked, is 17. UZ, we know is congruent to VZ, so that's 21. WV, now we have an issue. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to highlight this triangle in pink because this is why we did the Pythagorean theorem review. We have a right triangle here, WZV. I'm going to actually just bring that out and draw it because it might be a little easier to see. So we have 15 is the leg, VZ is our hypotenuse, and I don't know WV. So sometimes it's nice to just make a simpler drawing. So if we do the Pythagorean theorem, the hypotenuse squared minus the leg squared will give us WV. So take a moment to work that out. on your calculator. And it turns out to be approximately 14.7. So TV would be that times 2. So TV would be about 29.4. So what you need to keep in mind on these is that the circumcenter is equidistant from each vertex. If you create little right triangles anywhere that the perpendicular bisector meets the side, so you can always use Pythagorean theorem also to find missing measures. So if you turn your paper over, let's look at a situation where there's some algebra. So we'll look at number 8. So P is the circumcenter of triangle ABC. So what that means is here we have from the circumcenter to the vertex. So these segments are congruent. So 11x minus 14 equals 6x plus 1. So if we do the algebra correctly, x will equal 3. That's not the end of the question. We want to find the length of AP. That's the same as BP and CP. So AP would equal CP. You can pick any two. So AP would equal 6x plus 1. 2. 3, and AP would equal 19. So again, use the facts that we know that if you're missing these two segments, E would be a midpoint because it's created by the perpendicular bisectors, and the circumcenter where the perpendicular bisectors meet are equidistant from each vertex. So go ahead and complete this worksheet.